Oh yes. What's up, my friend? How you doing? That's good. This is a drawing that I made. This is part one of a drawing, I should say, called Fuera G20. It's on 30 by 40 paper, and I'm using a Kuretake brush pen, and sometimes I'll use the Pentel rechargeable ink. Recartridgeable. I'm making up words here, guys. Or a Micron 3-point pen. So, what are we doing? So, when I start out drawing, I generally do a bunch of really loose pencil sketches in my sketchbook, and with like a general composition of where I want to place the whole thing on the piece of paper. And then sometimes I make like a shape that you can't really see because it's an F pencil, just to keep me from wandering into the edge of the paper, because I don't really have a plan, and I'm using a marker and I can't erase, so I need a little bit of corralling, a little bit of guidance, a little bit of parameters, but there's not too many. So here I'm drawing like the roof of an opera house. And why am I drawing the roof of an opera house? Well, this drawing is based on a memory that I had when I was in Uruguay in 2019 working on a film that I directed. It was my thesis film for UCSD, where I went to grad school. That's right, y'all. Got an MFA. Heads up. So when I was there was there's a ton of protests. Like, there's a massive, among many other great things about Uruguay and Montevideo, there's a massive culture of protests, and people are in the street fighting and for better pay, better work hours, better quality of life. And that is awesome. So I was out there too. And one of the days, there was in Buenos Aires, across the Rio de la Plata, was the G20 summit, which is, if you guys are unfamiliar with what G20 is, it is essentially a big meeting of the richest mother in the world, who gather together to discuss how to better extract wealth from the global south, and based on predatory loans, which are designed to keep the global south destabilized and in debt to the United States of America. So that was the reason to get out on the street and protest against the G20. G20 is whack. So I was out there and marching with the crew, which was essentially mostly everyday people, some kids, but there was the sorry, I'm getting mesmerized by my own drawing here. There was the element of the anarchist movement, and the Black Bloc essentially was out and about too. So and we marched and we ended up marching past this opera house, which is why I'm drawing the roof of an opera house. So when I draw, I don't really have a plan, like I said, and I'm not that really good at drawing things accurately. I don't really have a lot of patience either, so I just like to get the drawing in there. But I have a good memory, and I'm able to make shapes that communicate an approximation of what I like to be doing. So these are the pillars of the opera house. Some banners. I remember there was a circular shape, the opera house. So a little bit of squiggles, straight lines, smudging. Those are essentially my tools. Those are my techniques that I do. When I draw, I try and keep myself in a state of unthinking, just a state of flow, a state where I don't judge the lines that I'm making, and I just kind of let them come out as they do. And sometimes I hate a line, sometimes I'm like, damn, wish I had made that line, and there's really no way to go back from it. So I have to just let it go. And I like to just stay in, thinking about what I'm doing, but also what's going to come up ahead, because sometimes I have to stop midway through some mark to anticipate the next body or the next shape that I'm going to do. But I'm just kind of trying to stay in the roof, in like the upper area of the opera house at this point, and not jump ahead. Thinking ahead is good a little bit, but just keeping it kind of in the back of my mind, like having that little sketch up above on top of the paper is good, but can't really stick to it too hard because I'll just get bored and restricted. So when I was walking, I had my photo camera, and I was marching with the gang and the crew, and when we came across the opera house, there was some folks started spray painting words on the columns of the opera house, and I found that to be very striking to see the anger and the audacity to spray paint upon these columns that are in the eyes of like the upper class, like a sort of an art house or a sacred place where everybody goes to listen to these old opera tunes. But striking at the center of, it's not really the center, but creative places that cater to a certain class is like a strategy to draw attention to voices, unheard voices. So this cat was bombing on the pillar, so I snapped a photo of him and kept marching, kept walking. And so as you can see, I kind of drew the guy with his backpack and his back facing to us. And here's what he wrote: Fuera G20, which is also the name of this piece. But if you can see right at the bottom of the hem of his shirt, I stopped to allow for the head of the next figure to start being drawn in there. I didn't want to cover up because I knew I wanted a sort of stream of people marching in a sort of fisheye fashion across the bottom of the drawing. So I stopped and made a beginning of a head, but I got distracted and I wanted to jump up and write Fuera G20 on the pillar. But here I go, returning to the masked woman below the man with the can of the graffiti spray on the wall. other elements that were at the parade, or the protest rather, was not only signs but music. So this woman is, I'm drawing her, she's banging on a drum, and to just keep the noise going, keep the rhythm. Trying to sort out the angle of her arm here. Each figure I do, I try and kind of kink or like tilt the shoulders or the hips in a certain way so they're a little bit odd or a little bit off center, so that they can swing a little bit. You know, I like figures that have a bit of motion to them. She's got her mallet. I'm drawing, I'm pretty close to the bottom of the page, about to run out of space. Hopefully I move the camera soon. That'd be nice, dude. There you go. So I stopped drawing her because I wanted to start on someone who, there were many folks like this who had paint-filled super soakers carrying around, which I thought was a really cool, interesting way to spread chaos. And so I started on some folks who are wearing respirators and holding paint-filled super soakers. The paint-filled super soakers were used to hit walls, cars, but also shoot at cameras, surveillance cameras, because surveillance is a pretty serious problem for folks who are engaged in creating chaos in protest of the predatory behavior of the G20 or other imperial forces. Because if your identity is seen, that's all on record, it's face mapped, and you'll be able to be picked up later down the line. So that's why it's good to wear a mask, and it's also good to spray the cameras with super soaker filled with paint. This figure, I did a few sketches that I wanted to keep on top of. So this is the first figure that kind of has this like 3/4 aerial view where I'm trying to like see down upon them from above slightly so that their shoulders are sort of square to my point of view, and then their legs kind of taper and get smaller as they go away. That was my intention with the layout of this figure. See how it really goes. It's not perfect, but you know, whatever. I'm less interested in like exactitude and super realism than I'm interested in like the total feeling of the energy of the piece, and not getting hung up on one little line and just trying to enjoy myself while I draw. which for the most part is pretty easy if I just stay in a positive mental state, which drawing gives me, which is quite a nice gift. I'm very happy about that. I'm mostly happy when I'm drawing. So that figure came out pretty good. I don't hate it. Squeaky chair alert. Heads up. Got the drummer marching a bit. If you're enjoying this video, my friend, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. So this was something that I had planned out from the get-go to try and anticipate a spray from the Super Soaker that went from the foreground of the piece into the background and traced the contours of the pillars of the opera house. So there's that intention to, like, I made that spray big and I want to connect it later. One of the things I'd like to work on that I'm not 100% happy with in my drawing pattern is that I have a tendency to jump around a lot and, like, dance around the page, which is it's not a bad thing really, but it's not as super good for filming because it doesn't create that kind of magic quality that occurs when you just go from the top of the body all the way down. I sort of like watch them. I'll probably jump across to another corner of the page. It takes a lot of discipline for me to not blast around the page and get distracted by unfinished things or like little imperfections or whatever. But that's one of my things I'm trying to improve upon. I just think it makes the better videos occur, you know what I mean? So who's this drawn now? I think this is oh yeah, this is like an opera goer. When we were marching and the protesters were doing their thing, there was also the element of people who were just at the opera or at the opera house. There seemed to be some kind of performance or opening or something. And so you had these folks dressed super nice in suits, smoking or drinking champagne and just hanging out and looking at what was going on, having their own thoughts and opinions. I don't know. I'm not them. I'm not inside their head. I can't speak for them. I can just draw little cartoons of them in the environment that I remember it as happening. So there's this little champagne glass. Delicious. Smudging is a really quick and easy way to create tone, and I really enjoy smudging. I need to get better at it. It's one of the things I'm working on. But sometimes I use like ink and watered down ink. Like if you've watched some other of my videos, I think I did it in virtual space. It's cheaper than real space. I use some ink washes, which is another way to go. So sometimes I'll have that handy if I see that I want to blast in some value, some darker value. But I enjoy trying to like get the smudge happen, right? And it's another one of those things that's just like every mark I make. It's essentially a Kuretake brush pen it's a really cool pen. Like it's a lot more elegant and nuanced than a marker, but at the end of the day, it's essentially a marker. It's like a high quality Sharpie. So smudging and making that look cool, an accumulation of marks and smudges, is part of this thing for me that I'm trying to get good at. The more you smudge, the more you know. If you're enjoying this janky, funky, thudding music track, this music was recorded by myself and my brother Billy in Jersey. What's up, Jersey? Over a holiday. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year. This is one of the first people in the drawing who's carrying a thermos, which was a lot of the protesters and a lot of people in general in the region in Uruguay and also Argentina drink this awesome drink called mate, yerba mate, and they drink it a very particular way, different from how it's bottled in the States. And in Uruguay, a lot of people carry around a container, a thermos of hot water, and something called a bombole, which is a ceramic cup with a special straw that you can drink, that you can put mate inside of, and kind of keep this like cup full of tea, raw tea, and then fill it up with hot water as you go throughout your day and sip on it, so it's always hot. So that's a very common thing to see, these big thermoses. People walking around, marching around with these big thermoses. There's a fella with goggles and a ski mask, and drawing his shoulders and straps. He's wearing a little tie. He's going to be playing a drum, sort of. So each person, sometimes I start off with like knowing what they're going to be doing, and sometimes it's just like see where it goes. You know what I mean? Nope. I just got frustrated. You see it on my face. Woo! Anyway, so see, I got distracted. I was like, what is this guy doing? Is he playing the drums? Is his hand gonna be okay? Hand gonna be messed up. I decided I want him to wear like fingerless gloves. That hand isn't that great. Oh, whatever. Next, moving on. Oh yeah, I remember I struggled with this guy's torso. So I was like, okay, there's the drum. Throw the drum in there. Now at least I know where the drum is. It's all good. I like how this hand came out a little better. It's got more jazz, got more stank to it. When in doubt, go with stank. That is my drawing ethos. If it doesn't look a little janky, a little stanky, then I'm not going to be totally pleased with it. And the accumulation of a drawing that holds together, that all the parts are like janky and some are imperfect, but some are holding together. That's what I like. That's got that feeling of it's being sorted out as you are watching it. Because that sorted out, half sorted out feeling. Yeah, that's nice. So those two folks I'm drawing right now are sort of more like everyday people. And she's there, the woman on the left, she's carrying a thermos, and the man on the right with the glasses, he has a shirt that says St. Pauli, which is a reference to, it's a punk house in Germany, I believe, that my brother told, whose band is the Uranium Club, the Minneapolis Uranium Club band. Shout out. You guys, you can watch my music video for them also on my channel. And St. Pauli is a punk house that my brother told me about, and I was very happy and surprised to see somebody marching with the St. Pauli shirt on during this protest. So that's part of my memory of this day, and so I decided to include that little reference in there. St. Pauli. Sometimes when I am drawing people, I have like a body type in mind, and it's so I try and stay with it. So this one, I was thinking like a bit more broad-shouldered, shorter hair, short, and tried to stick with that. Sometimes I get distracted. Looks like I'm taking a break to pick my nose in the corner, and now I'm back to drawing. That's great. Biting his nails, that's good. The guy, St. Pauli, is carrying a boombox. It's music. You gotta have music. Down here recording in the bunker, in the Rebel Grotto. So if you guys hear some thumping and thudding upstairs, that's my neighbor. So hopefully it doesn't distract you too much from the sweet, sweet enjoyment of relaxing and watching this drawing occur. Down here in the Rebel Grotto, we have many drawings on the wall. And also, we enjoy eating papayas and bananas and apples, and those are delicious. So as you guys can kind of see, I'm not sure if you could see, but I knew I wanted this kind of like wrapping around of the march. So as I move to the left of the drawing, and then also later, as you can see, as I move to the right, I kind of try and make the figures smaller and sort of twist the perspective so they're not quite looking down upon them but looking direct onto them. So you, in relation to the other figures, that scale creates a sense of wrapping around, or a sort of like fisheye perspective, but in a very rough way, a way that doesn't, it's not exact, it's not accurate. My giant head is taking up a lot of space in the frame. When drawing the smaller figures, I don't really get too tripped up about details. I just try and keep them proportional and get that swing, get a sort of like gesture of the body and certain characteristics, but not get hung up on trying to perfect like a likeness or a portrait or an attitude. Sometimes it's more about the simplicity. And now I'm starting to jam on some organic shapes, and among I like drawing smoke and fire and cars blowing up or being on fire. So I'm drawing a car in the middle of its own destruction happening over there, parked in front of the opera house. When I draw billowing smoke plumes, I essentially stick to a series of like crescent shaped connected forms that, when all together, create this like mass of billowingness, like a billowing quality. Oh, we got a little kid now? That's cool. So I'm back to the car. I bounced over to the kid. Now I'm back at the car. Now I'm bouncing back over to the kid. You can see my lack of focus in real time, people. Friends, viewers, drawers, artists. But yeah, so you got the crescent-shaped blobs of inky color, inky black ink, and framed out by the windows, and just adding on until I get a cool shape of billowing smokeness and fragments exploding out of the car. Those parallel lines, those action lines, a lot of these mark making guys come from my time as a like storyboard. I still do that, storyboards and comics. I don't do comics really, but a lot of the education of drawing for me came from copying comics as a kid, and then studying comics, and then later working as a comic book artist and inking. And inking is always where the magic happens, I feel. Pencil is really cool, and like there's a lot of great pencil artists, so I'm not saying that's not equally awesome. And I love watching videos where pencil artists do their thing. But the end result, the end results of a drawing for me that really knock my socks off are when the ink dances over the pencil and kind of creates its own attitude, does its own thing. And so that's why I do ink. That's why I try not to spend too much time in pencil, because I know that's not going to be the final expression, and I'd like to just kind of let the expression do its thing and trust my marks are going to be good enough and be satisfied with them. And yeah, that's what I like to do. But I do pencil a little bit. This isn't totally without pencil. So far there's been no pencil, but maybe part 2 I'll do a little pencil drawing to help myself make some strong compositional decisions towards the end, bring it home, land the plane, land the drawing in a good place. So yeah, there's my nice exploding car. The explosion is kind of bouncing off the far pillar of the opera house. And the little kid's like, yay! I'm just having a nice walk down the street. Easy does it. There's my billowing crescents. I kind of got the crescents rocking on the underside of the plume to give the plume some form on its own. There you go. There you go. Oh, there you go. And there you go. And there you go. And there you go. Yeah. I could do this all day. I love just drawing smoke plumes. I could really just draw a whole drawing that's smoke plumes and have a great time. And the camera moved. So I got my Micron 03 cracking. Having some fun doing a little cross hatching that you can't really see because the camera is didn't shoot this in 4K. Oh well. But yeah, creating some form around Mr. Pants, Mr. Champagne Pants suit, Mr. Vivaldi Opera House man. Stepping outside for a cigarette to watch the chaos unfold. What are these shapes? What are you doing? These are some kind of like blazonis kind of badges shapes up at the top. They could just be like architectural elements. I don't know. They kind of function to separate the roof walls from the pillars. So I decided to include them. And up at the top is the air ducts, the air conditioning systems at the top of the opera house, which I enjoy drawing as well. Uh-oh, what are you going to do now? Oh, there's a pencil. Bam. What is that little thing there? Cool. cool. So I stopped drawing that right side of the pillar because I knew I wanted a couple of figures there. And this one's, I'm very happy with how this one figure came out. This figure's there's two. There's one behind him, and this cat is bombing on the back side of the same pillar that says Fuera G20. And then this guy in front of him, or girl, is got a bicycle helmet and a gas mask and some goggles. And I kind of dig the way they came out. Nope, getting distracted by the architecture temporarily. Doing that. Cool, now I'm back. Got some smudges, got some window panes happening. And going back to the architecture, I decided to paint this banner with the name of an opera, not an opera, a composition of music by Vivaldi, and I got the name wrong, so you guys got to forgive me. The real name of the music is Rite of Spring, and I wrote The Rites of Spring. So that's how much research I did for this drawing. Most of it's from memory. This was not there, but text is cool, and I decided to put some text on this banner and put some texture on the pillar next to it. So you got the text on the right, texture on the left, smudges, and keeping on jamming. Yep. If you guys are digging this video, please like and subscribe. Oh yeah. It's really good when I spell the words correctly. I'm always happy when that happens. And something that I think came out good right here is that the folds of the flag are kicking it, and the letters as they cross the flag respond to the folds in the flag. So the N is kind of broken up and the G is kind of broken up in this way that makes it feel like it's wrapping around these folds in the flag. And it's done really simply. I don't really get hung up on cross contours too much, but they're in my head, and I know that text follows the cross contours and gets interrupted by folds, so I just kind of lean into the folds part. And accuracy is not my strong suit, so I don't sweat it too much. I sweat it just enough. But my hand is sweaty, if you guys are wondering. When I'm drawing, my palms are sweaty. To help you guys see, a sweaty palm is good for smudging your ink. If you're wondering about a technique, little accidental technique, is you can use your own palm sweat to smudge your Kuretake brush pen ink more nuanced, more how the amount of liquid you use can be depending on how sweaty your palms are. It sounds funny, but it's true. Use what you got. Oh yeah, boots. Palms are sweaty. Mom spaghetti. So here's my Super Soaker guy 2, which I think came out a lot better than Super Soaker guy, the first Super Soaker guy. He's smaller, so I'm not really sweating as much of the details. I'm kind of like trying to exist in the line work of like a Will Eisner type zone where it's just enough information to keep it anchored, and the shapes that are created by the darks like hold the form together. I think that's a really good strategy for drawing smaller figures when you can't really get too hung up on the cross hatching or the folds of clothes or anything like that. I kind of wish I had done that for those teeny tiny figures on the left marching with the kid, but that's okay. I'm getting distracted by the first guy with the backpack. It's okay. Yeah, so I like the way this Super Soaker guy number 2 came out because the figure is like twisted. His pelvis is kind of facing the audience, but his shoulders are twisted to such a degree to the right that, and he's looking kind of not on the same line of angle as his pelvis, but a little bit to the right, so you get this kind of dynamic pose. I like when you can twist the relationships and angles of the body. That creates a really exciting figure that I like to do. So tag him back to the blast of spray paint, of not spray paint, of Super Soaker paint. Here's where I'm starting to use a paint line from the foreground of Super Soaker guy number 1 to trace the contours of the pillars of the opera house. So I kind of found the shape of the opera pillars using the paint, and now I'm going up to the top there to add in some shapes of darkness and smudges to shadows of the undersides of the roof walls over there. And the paint from the gun cruises across and I'm pretty happy how that I accidentally didn't connect that one paint line so that it left room for the top of the head. And when I draw the top of a head, I know that the skull is like a pretty oval or circular shape, but it's a good way to hold a place that you know that you're going to return to later if you just like leave an upside down U, because you can build like the beginning of a head into that area. And then the back, close to the entryway to the opera house, I just drew some more champagne celebrators hanging out, watching the chaos. Now I'm thinking about what's going on inside the opera house, just to tie a bit of visual interior space to the exterior outside. And so I'm drawing a bit of a chandelier just from my head. It's kind of a Cronenbergian body chandelier with skeletal spines and stuff like that. But chandeliers they're just kind of wiry shapes with a couple of ellipses and bulbesque forms. You can imagine a light is there. But like I said, no reference, so what it ends up looking like is stuff I've seen either in my head or in movies, and when I try and improvise, if I don't know exactly what things look like or know how to draw them or haven't drawn them before, they can end up looking like a sort of surrealist Yves Tanguy line work with just a cluster of shapes together, which I think is what happened with the chandelier. But it's kind of cool. Finishing up the shadowy men by the door. Now I'm drawing the head of another graffiti guy. I'm drawing the head of another graffiti guy. Now I've returned to the above bit with the micron pen to try and draw just like thin ghostly lines that you could imagine, or I can imagine, are the interior of the opera house. This shadowy line work for this new graffiti guy who's I'm working on right now is a little different from how I've been drawing the other figures. I notice that all the lines are kind of facing the same direction, and there's a heavy emphasis on the shadow and the light side, which I think didn't start out that way in the drawing. It kind of took on that way of drawing, starting with this figure, which makes it stand out. And something that I'd like to work on is a bit more consistency with those lights, using the lights and the darks equally on each figure. These little panels down there at the bottom that I was just doing, those shapes, trying to hold the ground of like a sidewalk kind of situation. So this figure, which I chose to make bigger, just because I haven't really had a figure that holds the center of the piece until now. This is a compositional choice, so I wanted to make this figure large, and that gives me more of a range to get in and draw the nuances of the shape of the lips and the openings of the eye hole and the ski mask. But by placing this figure big and sort of to the right of center, it kind of pushes him way forward in the composition, and putting him in front of the steps, in front of the pillars, throws him way forward. And this character is a sort of like medic figure, but also a distributor of like food and water and snacks, which are an essential part of any march or any protest. It's always good to, if someone volunteers to provide food, water, and snacks or medical supplies, just in case someone gets injured or needs a bit of assistance right in that moment. So as you can see, as this guy evolves, he'll be standing there with some medical signage on his jacket, carrying a nice hot thermos of water, and also a little wheelbarrow at the bottom that is filled with empanadas, water, and free snacks. I decided that I wanted this guy to have not only a balaclava, but kind of like a furry collar to his jacket. Like a leather jacket with a furry collar. Thinking about clothing design is always a consideration while I'm drawing what kind of outfits are they wearing. I try and keep it, I try and be as creative as possible. Whatever I think is going to look good, I just do it. But so I thought this furry collar would look cool. And then he's got the red crosses on his cross medical insignia on his jacket, shoulders. One trick that's always good to do is when you're drawing clothes and figures, other than feeling out the folds, which is kind of a whole other conversation that I don't have an explanation, it's more instinct, but a trick that I do use is I draw in the seams to sort of create a center line for a shirt or an arm. It helps create a three-dimensional feeling. And what I'm drawing right now is the thing I described earlier. It's the bombola. That's the method of drinking mate in his left hand there. It's this little ceramic cup with a metal straw in it that he got kind of clasped under his hand. And in his right hand, or his left, but our right, is the hot thermos of water. Yum. And what I'm doing as I'm drawing this medic is similar to the first Super Soaker guy. I imagine that I'm kind of like 3/4 aerial, looking down upon him, or like maybe the street is kind of folding down and towards the audience. So his head is much larger in proportion to the rest of his body, and you have this kind of receding, like looking down onto him kind of feeling, almost like he's a triangle with a square on the top of it, or a rectangle for the shoulders. And as you go down towards the feet, we're looking down onto the feet, so they're more, I see the above angle of the shoes. Once I move the camera, you'll be able to see that. And the last thing I drew for this drawing was the food cart. So I began it. Looks like I took a little break. And the food cart, I focus on generally the shape of the wagon and shapes of food, which, as you can see, are not very detailed. They're just kind of like a series of shapes together create a feeling of like a pile of something. So I'm thinking like a pile of sandwiches, or a stack of water bottles all together, or like a box of empanadas. And this is, we're coming down to the end of the video, guys, so thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. And check it out, the next video should be coming out in the next day or two. The completion of this drawing.